the deal?
It's a weird thing.
The button came off. Is it plugged in?
Yeah, it's on.
So it's our good fortune that we have Ramapad Swami Maharaj with us.
With a microphone that doesn't work.
That's the bad fortune of the scenario.
It was working.
It was just working, right? We'll see. I'll work on this for the moment. But please come forward, because I know more people will come, because we have a tendency, our congregation loves to come late, especially our student group. So that can definitely happen.
This battery's dead.
That's the problem.
In the receiver.
Maharaj, will you be okay?
I'm okay.
Yeah, Maharaj's got it.
Okay, you're okay.
So, it's our good fortune. Maharaj will be, and nice to see some new and old faces here. Matt, will give you a shout out. Thanks for coming. It's our good fortune to have Ramapad Swami Maharaj coming here. He is a world traveler, monk, disciple of Srila Prabhupada, whose books we study here often. Many of you, the regulars, you know how much. He's a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada, studied under him. 55 plus years, I believe, a bhakti yogi, and now I think over 40 years as a Swami, correct? Is that correct?
I'd have to do the math.
I did maybe a little math before.
40.
Years as a Swami, that's incredible. So it's our good fortune to have him here, so please listen up and soak in some of the wisdom that he has to share with us. And without further ado, I will hand it over.
Sure.
I'm sorry, there's no mic.
Hare Krishna, everybody. A starting point is there anybody here that's new and needs a little introduction to Bhagavad Gita? You all have been introduced to Bhagavad Gita. That's good.
You know, I think a refresher would be good.
Huh?
A small refresher.
Small refresher. Once upon a time, Bhagavad Gita is the philosophical portion of a very large book, at least that big. Mahabharata, the history of Greater India, and it's a description of kings that ruled during that period of time. They ruled the world, not just the subcontinent of India. And the main theme of Mahabharata is dharma, or ethics, how to live one's life, things to do, things not to do, for the purpose of spiritual elevation, for the purpose of piety, but more than the purpose of piety, for spiritual elevation. And spiritual elevation means to know who you are, and then to know your relationship with the Supreme, and then be consciously functioning on that platform in your life. But then there's worldly considerations of social, interacting with nature properly, and so forth. If anybody has one of those little phones, you can do the needful. So in the middle part of this large history is Bhagavad Gita, is the philosophical portion, and it's related to a dilemma. The Arjuna is the person that's having the dilemma, and the person who's going to solve his dilemma is Krishna, and they're cousins, first cousins, meaning Arjuna's mother, her name is Kunti, and Krishna's father are brother and sister. Krishna's father is Vasudeva. Vasudeva's sister is Kunti, and Kunti is the mother of Arjuna. So they're first cousins. They're very close. They're not just very close. They're eternal associates. According to the Vedic texts, wherever and whenever Krishna appears, he always has at least this one particular person with him, Arjuna. So sometimes Krishna goes by different names, but Arjuna is always with him because this is his eternal associate. So they're that close. That's pretty close. And they have a relationship of friendship, which is different than the relationship of looking up with veneration to the Supreme, who is almighty and majestic and all-powerful. That's one kind of relationship. And Arjuna's relationship is more intimate. More intimate as a servant, and more intimate than the servant is a friend. They're actually friends. And the scene is a battle is about to begin. Arjuna, by his skill, his gift of God, is that he's very powerful protector of virtue, protector of dharma. And there's some other fellows that are just the opposite. They don't care about, they know, but they don't care. Not only they don't care, but their business is skullduggery. And they do it again and again and again and again and again. And Krishna personally made an attempt to make a peaceful solution to the conflict that was there between the cousin brothers. Cousin brothers means there's another personality whose name is Duryodhana, who is the chief of the bad guys. And he's Krishna's cousin and Arjuna's cousin. They're cousins. Without going into how they're cousins, they're cousins. First cousins. And the Duryodhana and company, he's a leader, he has lots of followers, and they want the kingdom. And there's an obstacle. And that's the obstacle is the rightful heirs to the throne is not him. There's details, but he wants to bump him off. And he tried a number of ways, and they failed, and now it's a war. And at the Bhagavad Gita opens with this setting the scene is chapter 1, and it's who's who on which this side and that side, and Arjuna has this existential dilemma, saying, I can't do this. I'm out of here. Here's my reasons why. Good reasons. Very good reasons. And he and Krishna have some discussion, and it comes to the point where Arjuna drops his bow. It says, I'm too bewildered. Please take a different relationship with me than just friend and having friendly talks. Please take the position, I submit to you. You become my teacher. You become my guru. The Sanskrit phrase is Shishyas teham shadimam tvam prapanam. You give me instructions. What's best for me? So that's where chapter 2 starts, with instructions from Krishna. And I'm going to go quickly to chapter 9. So in chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, there's a nice section where it's called Sankhya. Sankhya means to understand the distinction between matter and spirit. There's other ways of saying what it means. We belong to the category of spirit. Over there's the category of matter. There's divisions of matter. There's divisions of spirit. We belong to spirit. Sankhya. So to know who you are, that's a good starting point. To know that you're in the category of spirit. And then as Bhagavad Gita unfolds, there's some teaching of, that's a nice concept. Now how do you live your life that way? Meaning, we have practical activities, and how do you do your practical activities? Holding in the center the understanding, not just a concept, but the realization that your spirit soul, not the body that's doing things. It's not just a mental adjustment, it requires yoga practice. And so there's a system of yoga called karma yoga, where there's teachings in the earlier chapters how to do work with a spiritual conception of who you are. And that's a big deal. For many people, it's a big deal. I mean, notional is okay, practical is another thing. So the confidential knowledge is who you are. The way that Prabhupada described the beginning of this chapter 9. There's confidential, more confidential, and most confidential. Because the first verse of chapter 9 uses the phrase parama guyam, most confidential. So confidential is to know who you are. More confidential is the process of serving the Supreme Person. So in between is you're the individual and there's the Supreme. And there's so many individuals and there's one Supreme. We have a relationship, and acting in that relationship is more confidential than knowing who you are. I mean, it enables you to realize who you are, more than just notional, through the medium of serving the Supreme. And then that's the focus for that is chapter 7 and 8. Actually, it's the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. But by chapter 9, Prabhupada's explanation is most confidential is pure devotional service. So there's service, and then there's pure devotional service, unobstructed. In chapter 8, which precedes chapter 9, when we're discussing chapter 9, it's called Attaining the Supreme. And there's a nice verse, chapter 8, text 14, where it begins, Ananya Cheta Satatam. Ananya means always. And Cheta means consciousness. Well, your consciousness is absorbed in the Supreme always. And by your consciousness absorbed in the Supreme always, then you'll attain the Supreme. Very simple. Very simple. Let's go back. There's an earlier verse where Krishna says, whatever your mind is absorbed in the time of death, that's where you're going to go. Because the mind carries the soul to the next destination. Whatever the mind is absorbed in, that's where you're going to go. Because the mind carries the soul. The gross body is left behind. The subtle body carries the soul to whatever the next situation is. And whatever the configuration of the mind is at that moment of death, that's where you're going to go. Because the subtle body carries the soul, and material nature just provides the accommodation for that mental state. So what your mind is absorbed in is very important. So what the mind is doing in life is very important. What the mind is doing in yoga while you're doing your yoga is very important. And so devotion is the means of attaining the Supreme. Chapter 8. 7 and 8. Now comes chapter 9. Pure devotional service. So that's a little background. And it's 25 after 6 already. So now I'm supposed to summarize chapter 9. I don't think I'm going to get through the whole of chapter 9. Because I did a little background. But that's okay. The first 3 verses of chapter 9 are kind of a it's kind of a proclamation of what the whole chapter is. And the proclamation is, Krishna says, Arjuna, I'm now going to describe something to you that's more confidential than anything else that I've explained. what he's explained is already very confidential. So it's the most confidential knowledge. Parama Guyam. Guya means confidential. But even if he tells somebody, they still can't understand it because it's confidential. You understand that one, right? Sometimes people are having a conversation, you don't know what they're talking about, because they understand each other, and they're not speaking in codes. They just understand each other so well. You don't understand what they're saying. That kind of confidential. Because many people read Bhagavad Gita, they don't get it because it's most confidential. And the explanation in the first verse is, those who are not envious of Krishna, they can understand it. Well, there's two requirements. It comes in verse 3, and that is, they're faithful, and they're not envious. Then you can understand it, at least slowly. So I'll assume you're all faithful and not envious, because otherwise you wouldn't be here. And so slowly, you can understand this most confidential knowledge. And Krishna says in the first verse, by understanding this most confidential knowledge, you shall be relieved from all miseries of material existence. Would you like to be relieved of all miseries of material existence? Not a bad offer from Krishna. Of course, it's not just business deal, I do and I get, but it's the consciousness of pure devotion lifts one above the miseries of material existence. Consciousness-wise, the circumstances don't stop being what the circumstances are, but your consciousness becomes different. That's the explanation. Then the king of knowledge, which was the way that I was asked to speak about, that's verse number 2. Raja Vidya. Raja means king. Raja means king. Raja Vidya means king of knowledge. Raja Vidya, there's the word Guyam again. Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam is the most confidential. Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam. Pavitram. Pavitra means pure. Pavitram idam uttamam. Uttamam, topmost, most pure, most confidential, most sublime. Pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means to see, directly perceive, just like we're seeing each other. Only with spiritual vision one can see Krishna, or one can see this topmost knowledge. One can perceive the self. Now, we can't see the soul because it's so tiny. And these eyes aren't going to be able to see the soul no matter how good you are. But by spiritual realization, revelation, there's a whole other topic, but this subject matter is meant to be realized, and when one is pure from receiving it with faith and without enviousness, then you can perceive who you really are. Eternally, not the temporary only, but the eternal self. Pratyaksha avagamam dharmyam. Sukham. You know what the word sukha means? Pleasure, happiness. Sukha and dukkha, happiness and distress. That's this world. But there's eternal happiness, and you put the prefix su, it means very. Sukham. And it's imperishable. It's once that happiness within is reached, you never lose it. Circumstances outside can be whatever they are. We're in a world that's filled with duality. I'm sure you've noticed. Sometimes it's summer, sometimes it's winter. Sometimes it's night, sometimes it's day. Sometimes there's happiness, sometimes there's distress. Sometimes there's honor, sometimes there's dishonor. Sometimes and sometimes. The nature of the place of duality. So the place doesn't change, but your consciousness will change if you follow this promise that Krishna gives. Susukam, kartam avyayam. It's imperishable. Everlasting and joyfully performed. And then the third, so it still finishing the broadcasting of the glories of what's coming. Krishna goes in the other direction. It's something that he does in this chapter a number of times. I'm not going to point it out each time. But he does what I learned from taking a course in the art of teaching from Burijan Prabhu. Maybe some of you know who he is. He's a wonderful educator, a wonderful Vaishnava. So he wrote a book that's about that thick called The Art of Teaching, because for some period of time he was headmaster in the Vrindavan Gurukul. So he wanted to learn about the art of teaching. So he studied it and wrote a book about it. And he taught a course for 1 month in the Vrindavan Institute, which I took. And one of the things I learned in that course is one of the methods of teaching is compare and contrast. Just sharing. Compare, contrast. To understand something, you should say what the something is, and you should also say what the something isn't. Because then it's well defined. Here's a nice example. Some of you are familiar with Rupa Goswami's teaching about bhakti. And it's a short verse, but it's the resting point of the whole of this large book, Nectar of Devotion, or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's all about bhakti. So what's bhakti? The first part is what bhakti isn't. The second part is what bhakti is. That's a good definition. So what bhakti isn't is jnana and karma, or the abhilas, or the desire to do something to get something. So bhakti is minus that consciousness. And the other is speculative knowledge, to understand Krishna with your flashlight. Looking for the sun with your flashlight is not how you find the sun. It's descending knowledge. So it's not jnana or karma. That's what it isn't. So if that's what it isn't, what is it? Then he says what it is. It's having the intention, anukoyena Krishna anushilanam, having the intention of pleasing Krishna with everything that you do. And then if it's not pleasing to Krishna, you don't do it. You do everything in such a way, in the consciousness, that it's meant for pleasing Krishna. That's love. That's bhakti. And that's pure bhakti. It's uttama bhakti. It's shuddha bhakti. So that's a good definition that says what something is and what something isn't. And Krishna is doing this in this chapter repeatedly, like 6 times. He'll say what something is, and then he'll say what something isn't. So it's clear. He's defining pure devotional service. And so in verse 3 he says, those who are envious, those who are not faithful, it's not a pretty situation for those people that aren't faithful. They're not going to understand. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me. Therefore they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. Chapter 8 spoke about the path of light and the path of darkness. This is the attaining the supreme chapter 8. So that the path of light is you go to the spiritual realm. The path of darkness, path of birth and death. And he's indicating, connecting chapter 8 with chapter 9. This is the means of the path of light. There's some mechanical or other forms of activities that help, but the final, solution is a life of pure devotion with faith. And then, those that don't have faith, they're going to come back again and again and again in the cycle of birth and death. So that's nice. That's the introduction. So now comes the next section. There's 4 sections. I'm just doing a quick, very simple summary of the chapter. Krishna does something in verses 4 and 5 and 6 that I call Upanishadic double talk. Some of you may have one of Prabhupada's translations is the Ishopanishad. In Ishopanishad, there's some Upanishadic double talk, where Krishna says, I walk, but I do not walk. I'm very far away and very near as well. I'm within everything and I'm outside everything. It's double talk. So we're in the room. We can be in the room, but you get out of the room. We can't be both in the room and out of the room. But Krishna can be in the room and out of the room. No problem. I'm within everything and outside everything. And how is that? Well, there are different ways of understanding how that is, but it's part of this section is Aishvarya Gyan. It's understanding the opulences. Aishvarya means opulence. The opulences of Krishna, and specifically his relationship with the material world. So if you want to go the path of light and go to Krishna, best to know who is Krishna and how he's situated with us, or how we can be situated with him. So I'm going to read the double talk, and then Krishna solves the double talk. Ready? By me, this is verse 4, in my unmanifested form, it sounds contradictory already, unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. That's not enough. Listen to this. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Back-to-back verses. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, I'm not, this is the key, I'm not a part of this cosmic manifestation, for myself is the very source of creation. So it's a relationship between Krishna and creation, or material nature, or look out the window and what do you see? You see stuff. So that all that stuff is within Krishna, and Krishna within that stuff, but he's not there in the same sense because he has his abode in Krishna Loka. He's present everywhere through his material energy, and his energy is situated in him. Something like the sun and the sunshine. So everything that Prabhupada speaks a lot about this. The energy of the sun maintains the universe. So the sun is present everywhere by the sunshine. And it's the energy of the sun, the heat and light of the sun. Without the heat and light of the sun, then the universe is lifeless. There's life because there's heat and light from the sun. And there's so many other things because the sun moves, and so there's day and night, and there's seasons and so forth and so on. So Krishna is present in his expansion as Paramatma. Krishna is present everywhere in the form of his material nature. Krishna is everywhere in the form of his unmanifested form, meaning the Brahmajyoti. And then, but Krishna has his own separate existence. He's in Krishna Loka, engaging in everything he does in Krishna Loka. And he's not distracted by what's going on here. Yet it's only happening by his sanction. So then text 6, he explains. It's a nice example. And I'm going to refer to it a few times because text 6 helps understand things that happen later in the chapter. He gives the example of the sky. And he gives the correlation between the mighty wind that's blowing clouds in the sky. And as the mighty wind is blowing clouds in the sky is unchanged. Similarly, Krishna is unchanged. He's ever detached from the movements of material nature, but the movements of material nature only happen because of him. It's another verse that comes later in the chapter. The moving and the non-moving living entities, the whole of material nature moves because of him. But he's unchanged. So that's an important factor to understand about Krishna. He's not impersonal, but he's not involved in the sense that when the wind blows, he's feeling windy. Or when the wind is not blowing, he's feeling suffocating. He's not influenced by the movements of his energy, but his energy only moves by his sanction. He's directly involved, he's indirectly involved, he's remotely involved, but it's all resting in him in the sense like the wind blowing the clouds in the sky. The sky is unaffected. I'm going to give a little practical example that makes a lot of sense to me. Supposing you're in an airplane and they're saying, okay, fasten your seatbelts, we're going to take off. You're zooming down the runway and you're on the land. And you get it up enough momentum and so forth, and now you're in the sky. And you're zooming in the sky, and there's clouds in the sky, and you're passing through the clouds. And you look out the window, you don't see the sky. You just see the clouds. And then you go further up, and then you don't see the clouds anymore, you just see the sky. So question, when you were in the clouds, were you in the sky or not? Because the clouds are in the sky, you're in the sky. Right? So now let's step back, 10 giant steps. And the material creation is a cloud called Mahatattva. And we're in the cloud of the Mahatattva, one small portion of it. But that Mahatattva is in the spiritual sky. So now, are we in the spiritual sky right now? Yes. We're not relating to it, relating to the cloud. Prakriti. But Krishna is relating to us, relating to Prakriti, thinking we're the doers and we're enjoying or suffering, we're doing whatever we're doing. And we're oblivious to the fact that we're in the spiritual sky and we have an eternal relationship with Krishna. This chapter is prompting us, Arjuna, and through Arjuna, us, to come to the stage of pure devotional service, to recognize Krishna is everywhere. Although we cannot see him presently, but pratyaksha avagamam dharnyam, second verse, it's meant to give direct perception. Because to see yourself means to see yourself in relation to Krishna. You can't see yourself in the darkness. You can see yourself in light. And Krishna is the light. So that's how he solves the Upanishadic double talk. But it's the lesson, it keeps going, but the lesson is we have an eternal relationship with Krishna. That was the earlier chapters. Now how does it become pure devotion? Know that person better who you're wishing to be in service to. And as you understand the amazing, all-pervasive kindness and purity and influence that Krishna has, there's not really anything else to do but to engage in his service. So the next set of verses is part of the second section. Krishna is describing creation and destruction. And it comes by the force of time. Time moves matter. So millennium after millennium I create, after some time I dissolve, I create it again, by my potency and withdraw it, I create it again. The whole cosmic order is under me. This is the sky now. It's all happening, it's under his direction. Under my will it is automatically manifested again and again. Under my will it is annihilated at the end. O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral, not neutral in the sense he doesn't care, neutral in the sense like he's not affected by the temporality of things of this world. The temporality of things of this world are there because living entities have desire and hate. They have misused free will, and so here we are. And he's accommodating according to our desire and hate. Icha dvesha samudtena. He's accommodating. But the appeal in this chapter and the whole of Bhagavad Gita ultimately is, don't waste your time here. Don't become absorbed in La La Land. It's not really who you are. There's no real happiness here. Engage in your pure, loving relationship with me. That's the invitation. And the verse number 10 descends the section. So, as I mentioned, Krishna is saying in text 10, Maya Jakshena Prakriti. Adhyaksha means his supervision. The whole of Prakriti is under his supervision. And it's moving and non-moving living entities. Non-moving living entities means trees and plants and things like that. And then there's moving living entities, it's all the other living entities. And it's all under his, it's all moving by Prakriti. That's a verse that goes back earlier in chapter 3. Everything that's happening is happening by the movement of Prakriti. We have a role to play, and our role to play is, we desire to make some endeavor, those two things. We desire to make some endeavor. But supposing there isn't sanction, you can get paralyzed, you can't walk across the room. So Prakriti enables it to happen. And the one that's sanctioning Prakriti to work is Krishna. That's what this text 10 is saying. Hetu nani kaunteya jagadi parivartate. Under its rule, that's material nature, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. He's the remote controller, and the material nature is doing things. Now Krishna's, the punchline here is Krishna's inviting us to have direct relationship with him. Move about, what's your nature? You're going to do it anyways because it's your nature. So do those things that are your nature in consciousness of who's behind it. And not only in consciousness, but with a mood of loving service. Not only mood of loving service, pure loving service. Going back to this Ananya Cheta. The word Ananya is going to come up again. Now I don't know if this is holding your attention because I'm drilling down a little bit. And maybe you're not used to hearing those kinds of classes. Should I keep going?
Yes.
It's okay. Okay. So that's the second of 4 sections. The next section, there's lots of verses that you can memorize, or say this differently. Just by hearing Prabhupada's lectures thousands of times, there's certain verses that you hear again and again. Chapter 9 has a lot of them. There's about 15 verses out of 34 that Prabhupada would say again and again and again and again. So I made a little list of them, and I can send that little list to you, and then you can circulate to people who are interested in becoming alert to what those key verses are. Some people like to learn verses. I've never really tried to memorize verses. I just hear them again and again and again. starting with the next section, starting verse 11, Avajananti Mamudha, Manushim, so Krishna is now going to go the other direction. Those who can't understand him, the faithless. Avajananti Mamudha Manushim Tanamashatam. They're foolish people. Mudhas, not a nice word. It means someone's foolish. You listen to Prabhupada's lectures and he calls them rascals. And he knew very well that it's like very demeaning. But it was purposeful. He was cutting our affinity for foolishness. Anyway, he just had a style in Mudha. But those persons who don't know Krishna's Param Bhavam, his higher nature, they think that he's one of us. He's maybe a better version of us, but he's just one of us. And that means we can aspire to be him. But in fact, he's not one of us, and he has supreme dominion over everything, including those people who think he's one of us. There's a long purport, 5-page purport for that one. Important verse. And following that verse is again, it's the downside, it's the contrast side. He wants to describe devotional service. He's describing what devotional service isn't also. So text 12 is strong. Moga shamoga karma no moga jnana vicheta saha. Moga is another strong word. Means you're defeated. Mogasha, your desires are defeated. Mogasha, moga jnana, your knowledge is defeated. Moga karma, your activities are defeated. Before you even say go, you're defeated. If you're in that category of thinking in a faithless way that Krishna assumes a physical material body, just like we do. He has a form, but his form is not material. And those who think that his form is material, defeated. Then he goes the other direction. Those are not deluded. This is 13. There's 34 verses in the chapter. Those who are not deluded, the great souls, another often quoted verse, Mahatmanas tamam partha daivim prakritim ashrata. Everybody knows the word Mahatma, as in Mahatma Gandhi. So this is how the verse starts. Mahatmanas tamam partha daivim prakritim. Prakriti means nature, and daivim prakriti means spiritual nature. They take shelter of the internal potency of Krishna. That's devotional service. Those who are not deluded, they're the great souls, and they take shelter of the spiritual potency. Daivim prakritim. Daivi is like divine. Prakriti, nature. They take shelter of the spiritual potency. And then here comes the word ananya again. Vajanti ananya manaso. I'm repeating it purposely. From chapter 8, text 15, ananya cheta. So now it's kind of like resonating the same vibration again. Only this is ananya manasa. That's the mind. It's undeviatingly fixed upon Krishna. Ananya manaso, bhajanti ananya manaso, gyatva bhutadam avyayam. They understand Krishna is inexhaustible, avyayam. There's no end, there's no limit, and he's the original person. So this is clarifying pure devotional service. It's a nice verse. And what do? Such persons that take shelter of the spiritual energy, Devi Prakriti, what do? Another celebrated verse. Satatam kirtayantam mam. Satatam means always. Kirtan, everyone knows kirtan. Satatam kirtayanto, about what? Mam, about Krishna. We're all engaged in having kirtan about Krishna. Satatam kirtayantam mam. Yatantasya dridhavrata. Dridhavrata is another nice word. Firm determination. Firm determination. Nothing can push them this way, push them that way, stop, go, nothing. Dridhavrata. Pure bhakti requires great determination. Why? Because there's always something. And if there's not something, then there's 10 somethings. There's always something that's like an obstacle. I want to tell you a little Prabhupada story. Because I just heard it and it's really nice. Prabhupada had Dridhavrata. It's short, but it's really sweet. As you know, Prabhupada came by boat to America, 2 heart attacks, when crossing the sea. He survived somehow. Krishna saved him. When he got to New York, that was where the harbor, from the Boston harbor to New York harbor, he said, he walked down the gangplank where the passengers come off the boat, and they didn't know whether to turn left or right. There was nobody waiting for him. He didn't have any money. He had 14 rupees, which you can't cash in America anyways. So he somehow made it to Port Authority bus station, and from Port Authority got on a bus to Butler, Pennsylvania. Long story. Stayed there for some time. He came back because his mission was New York. He came back to New York. Didn't have a place to stay. Dr. Mishra gave him a place to stay. Dr. Mishra was a Mayavadi, a nice professor. Dr. Mishra. And, he had students, and so he gave Prabhupada a room to stay. But the room was just an office. Means didn't have water, didn't have a toilet, didn't have a kitchen, just your 4 walls. And at a certain time in the morning when Dr. Mishra was up, he went in the winter outside along 72nd Street to Dr. Mishra's place to take his morning bath. Use the toilet, put on clean clothes, cook for Krishna, offer to Krishna, cook for Dr. Mishra. And that's how he lived his life for some time. But he didn't have a place for gathering. So he somehow got enough money to get a little tiny place. I mean, the way it's described, it was big enough for him to, he didn't have a bed, just to roll out, a little mat, sleep on the floor. Then he rolled up the mat, and that was his space. And in that little space, he had a little place where he could have a half kitchen, whatever they call those things. And he would cook. And they would invite guests. So he had like 5 or 6 guests. Swamiji with 5 or 6 guests. So one evening, he made a nice feast. It was a Sunday feast. He was expecting 5 or 6 people for the Sunday feast. And nobody came. He was discouraged, right? Dridhavrata. So somebody had given him a really, really old, reel-to-reel recorder. Not like a modern thing. Reel-to-reel. So he gave a class to the 4 walls. Recorded in that reel-to-reel recording. And later, that became the introduction to Bhagavad Gita. There was nobody in the room but the 4 walls and the recorder, reel-to-reel recorder. Later that recording was transcribed and became the introduction to Bhagavad Gita. And how many people have read the introduction to Bhagavad Gita in so many languages? Millions. Dridhavrata. Not discouraged by success or not success. One-pointedness. That's our founder Acharya, when he had nothing. So that's back to the verse. Those persons who have that Dridhavrata, great determination, Satatam Kirtayankama, they're always having kirtan, they're always chanting my glories. endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, namasyantas tamam nityam, nitya yukta upasate. Upasana means worship, always, nitya yukta, always engaged in worshiping me. That's the pure devotee. Remember, that's what chapter 9 is, pure devotional service. Prabhupada is such an example of great acharya to speak it and to live it. Now he goes back the other direction. Those that aren't pure devotees. But text 15 is an important verse. In a very liberal way, my opinion, very liberal way, Krishna is including people that worship him indirectly as also his devotees. He gives 3 categories, from lower, intermediate, and higher. The higher one is those who worship the universal form. The lower than the universal form is those who worship many demigods. And the lower than that is those who worship themselves. Ekatvena Bahuda, what's it? Ekatvena Prataktvena, Prataktvena Bahuda. Vishvatomukam. The Vishva means universe. Vishwarupa, Viratarupa, universal form. So then there's several verses, I'm not going to go through them. He's describing people that do that. People that worship the demigods with earnestness, they may go up, stay for some time, come back down again. And when their pious credits run out, or they're exhausted, their pious credits, they come back again. So that's not recommended. Krishna is very liberally calling them his devotees. Now there's other places where he says they're foolish. But, he's accepting them as his devotees. Then he goes back to pure devotional service. Actually, he makes a step towards pure devotional service in text 27. Remember, there's 34 verses. I'm going to get there. So 27 is a Karma Yoga verse. The Karma Yoga verse, Krishna says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you give away, whatever sacrifices you perform, whatever austerities you do that as a sacrifice unto me, as an offering unto me. Mad arpanam. That's a classic verse that's indicating Karma Yoga. What's the difference between Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga? Who would like to say? Short answer. What's the difference between Karma Yoga? What is Karma Yoga? Karma Yoga is you do your work, but you offer the fruits of your work to the Supreme. Don't be attached to the fruits of your work. So you work, there's some fruits, what do? You offer to the Supreme. Not some, all. Doesn't mean you can't have a bank account, but it means when you put the money in the account, it may have your name on the account, but you know it's Krishna's account, and you're spending it for Krishna, etc. So that's Karma Yoga. And the Karma Yoga is a subset of Bhakti Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga is, it's not just you want detachment from the results of your work. You want Krishna. That's Bhakti. And as a subset is detachment from the fruits of your work. That was 27. 28. Ooh. Shubha Shubha Palaya Eva Moksha Se Karma Bandhana. Going back to chapter 8, where Krishna was describing the path of light and the path of darkness. The path of light is for those who do auspicious things. The path of darkness is those who don't. And in this verse, Krishna is saying, pure devotional service, you go beyond the good and the bad. The results of the good and the results of the bad. For example, I think I'm gonna just say a couple things and call it quits because I think brain cells are getting exhausted. In Srimad Bhagavatam, here's the pure devotional service. Those who engage in pure devotional service go back to Godhead. So when the Pandavas finished, according to Bhagavatam, they went back to Godhead. According to Mahabharata, they went to heaven. So which is it? Because there's emphasis in Mahabharata about piety. So those that do piety, they go to heaven. And those that engage in pure devotional service, they go back to Godhead. Why? Because their consciousness is absorbed in Krishna. That's just pious. So it's good to be pious. It's good to be better than good. It's good to be a pure devotee. It's really good to be engaged in devotional service directly, and it's good to be a pure devotee. And then it's nice to read. You read the rest of the chapter, and it'll help you understand what it means to be a pure devotee. And Krishna will help you. That's the concluding part of this chapter. Even if you mess up, even if you do something really bad, Krishna will accept you as a sadhu, and Krishna will correct the problem from within. Somehow. That's his promise, and he does it. But you have to, it's one thing, you have to want him. And then he'll help you. Even if you're, even though we are less than perfect, he'll help us he'll help us come to that stage. To take away the inconsistency things that are inside. But we have to want him. And that's pure devotional service. Chapter 9. King of Knowledge. Raja Vidya. You're probably not used to a class like this. And I don't usually give classes like this either. Usually I've got pictures and stories. But I was told King of Knowledge, so that's it. Raja Vidya. Any comments? Or complaints? Or questions? Yes,
I have
sure.
a question. As I've been going to these lectures of yours, if I think of a question in the middle because of a bad memory, I've usually forgotten the question by the end. And then I often think of more questions after. Is there a way that we can send you questions later if we
Sure.
remember them or think of them later?
Sure. Anybody in here that you know who knows me?
A few people. Like Ram and I don't know, is Dolly here? Oh,
Huh?
yeah, there, yeah. So yeah, a couple people.
Okay, so some people you know that know me, and just send
pass it
them
to
and
them and ask them to pass it to you.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I have not. I have just time to burn. So it may take a while to get back, depending upon what's going on.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that just means you've thought about it more, right?
That just means I'm busy with 6 other things, and
Oh.
I'll get to it.
I'll just assume that you thought about it more.
Oh well. When I get it, I'll think about it. But sometimes it takes a while. Just like I sent to Ramchandra something that a question came up in one of the classes we were having in Atlanta. There's some new devotees, and they're nice young men. So one wanted to know, hey, this Vedic cosmology thing, it speaks about Rahu, and Rahu got his head chopped, and how does that fit in with with Western cosmology? And if they're both the same, then how does it work? So I said, I'm not knowledgeable in either, that Vedic cosmology in a big way, what to speak of Western cosmology. but here's something that I'll give you two answers. It's not just mythology, and there are different models of ways of looking at the same thing. But I'll get you a more comprehensive answer. So it took about 5 days. I asked people that were very knowledgeable, and I put it together. They say slightly different things of what Rahu is. Does that mean anything to you, Rahu? You've heard the term before?
I've heard lots of terms, but like I said, my memory's like Swiss cheese.
Okay. So it's a Vedic way of explaining eclipses of the sun and the moon.
Okay.
And I consulted 5 people, and the answer, I gave the same question, they gave their answers. There's some synergy between their answers. There's some details that are different. Specifically, what is Rahu? But the most authoritative one is the first one. So I just sent that to Ramchandra. I'm giving you an example, but it took me 5-6 days. And I wasn't, I was pursuing it. But I didn't know the answer to I had a notion, and the notion was the right notion. But I said to him, I don't know the detail of how to explain this to you in detail. Let me go to people that can say it in detail. So I put it together, sent it to him, and so we had some discussion yesterday about cosmology, and I passed that one on to Ramchandra. So I give you that as an example. It may take a while. You get
Well,
back
5
to
days doesn't sound like a while.
For me, that's a while. I'm like fast.
Be weeks and that'd be okay. We can be patient.
Okay, good. As long as you don't forget.
Oh, I know. All right, thank you very much.
Sure. Sure. Yes.
I wonder if there's an online question.
There's an online question.
Dear Guru Maharaj, is it possible to perform unflinching devotional service during the sadhaka stage? Would that act in sadhaka stage for pleasing Guru and Krishna become an act of pure devotion?
Become an act of pure devotion. Well, if you're a follower of Rupa Goswami, the answer is yes. So let me answer his question by asking a question. The answer is yes. The question is A, B, C, D, or E. A tulsi, you can say a seed of a tulsi plant is also a tulsi. B, a tulsi is after the seed has sprouted and there's 2 little leaves. That's a tulsi. That's B. Or tulsi is after the tulsi is matured and it's a whole bush and there's many leaves. That's a tulsi plant. And the next one is there's little flowers, manjaris. And then there's the final one is there's seeds that are produced by those manjaris. So which one of those is a tulsi? The answer is all of them. So even in the immature stage, this is provided one is conscious, is cultivating the path that Rupa Goswami is extending to us, then yes. Answer the same question in a different way. Same question. This person's question is Devahuti's question to Lord Kapila Dev. Who is Lord Kapila Dev? Kapila Dev is found in Canto 3, Srimad Bhagavatam. He teaches Sankhya philosophy. And his mother was Devahuti. Devahuti heard from him about devotional service. And she said, okay, get it. Devotional service is pure. But what if someone is not yet pure? What happens? Is devotional service then become mixed? And Devahuti, the answer is yes. Devotional service is pure. One's consciousness may not be pure. Then he says devotional service in ignorance, devotional service in passion, devotional service in goodness, devotional service in transcendence. So devotional service is pure. Can one be engaged in pure devotional service even one is in the practicing stage? Yes, provided one is a follower of Rupa Goswami, meaning the principles that guide us towards purity, and you follow them. You get on a train, there's another way of saying the same thing. You get on a train that's going to X destination. You're supposing you're not at X destination yet. Are you going to X destination? Yes. Stay on the train. Make sure you get off when you're supposed to get off. And you're at your destination. You're in transit between where you are and where you're going. So, provided, fourth time, provided there's some proper guidance of what the standards of what pure devotional service is, and you're actively cultivating, even you're not there yet. Anyone else? I can tell it was a different kind of a class than you're used to having.
I think they're a little shy. They like to ask questions. I'll ask a question on behalf of the group. If we are in transit towards this pure devotional service, or thinking about getting on the train.
Yeah, okay, that's different.
Yeah, we're thinking about getting on the train. What is the other option? You know, because for some of us might not be so aware. You talked a little bit about what the foolish option was, but what's going on for those who decide, now let's not get on the train in pure devotional service to the Lord?
Well, there's depends. That for example, one could be thinking, I'm not qualified for that kind of commitment, although I find that is very attractive. Let me become qualified. Let me take steps to become qualified for that standard. And that's a kind of cultivation of bhakti also. There's, you know, supposing you want to become a medical doctor, supposing you want to become an Ayurvedic doctor. You know, it takes years. And so I don't know if I'm ready to become a doctor or an Ayurvedic doctor, but let me, you know, see if it's something that it can capture my energy and I can channel my energy. So maybe I'll read some books, maybe I'll become an apprentice to some doctor, maybe somebody, you see if you can be prepared to cultivate pure devotional service seriously. So then you can go back in Bhagavad Gita and try to do what you can do, like karma yoga. Sincerely, you know, work without attachment to the results of your work. That's nice. That's nice. And then what do you do with the results of your work? Then, you know, there's instructions in how to do that. So that's something that one can do to prepare oneself for the stage of devotional service and then pure devotional service. And, you know, universally, one can engage in chanting the holy name. One can engage in seeing the deity form. You may not be ready to be a worshiper of nice deities like this, but you can appreciate how nicely they're dressed and so forth and so on. And you can read Bhagavad Gita and try to understand, and whatever you feel that you can apply, you apply. So that's the preliminary to making that drita vrata, that firm commitment, firm determination. Yes. Preliminary things are fun. That's part of bhakti life also. On behalf of your group. But it's good to know something that I heard Prabhupada say many times. I'll say it now. When a goal is well defined, it's very easy to take steps to get there. Then conversely, if a goal is not very well defined, it's pretty hard to take steps to get there. In my college days, I had a friend that had a sports car. When people didn't, it was like, it was very unique. It was not only a sports car, it was a convertible sports car. It was like cool. A little MG. And he, every weekend, every Saturday, he'd go for a drive. And finally I asked him, when you go for a drive, where do you go? He said, I'm just going for a drive. And my reply was, I hope you get there. If the goal is not well defined, how are you going to get there? So, in response, if you're not ready for that commitment for pure devotional service, that's okay. It's a goal. It's a worthy goal to look towards. Now, what can I do to help qualify myself? And then you start doing things, mode of goodness things, your food choices, cleanliness, truthfulness, austerity of speech. You don't speak in manners that's disturbing to other people. Austerity of speech, chapter 17, Bhagavad Gita. It's a nice verse, 17:15. Look it up later. 17. It means when you speak, you don't speak in such a way that you agitate the minds of others. Anyway, it's a nice verse, and the explanation. So you cultivate those things, because that'll help qualify you to be ready to make the commitment for devotional service and pure devotional service. And devotional service means Krishna will help you. You may be not so qualified, but Krishna will help you. That's the good news. No one who has that faith, they're on the path. Yes,
I have a question unrelated to all of this.
it's okay.
So it's advertised in a way that Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu.
Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu.
The 12 incarnations.
I'm with you.
And so ideally it sounds like Vishnu is on
Above.
Yes. And then when we come to ISKCON, it's like Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. But when we talk to the other people who don't know about ISKCON, they're like, no, Vishnu is the supreme, and then Krishna is just one of
Avatar Vishnu.
Yeah. So.
How do you put those two together is your question.
Mhm.
For your information, the Srimad Bhagavatam says the same thing. And says something in addition to that same thing. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1 has 6 questions. And in the next 2 chapters give the answers to those 6 questions. One of those 6 questions is, could you please, this is the Sages to Sutta, headed by Shonaka Rishi to Sutta. Please describe the forms of the Lord as they appear in this world. So you can look it up later. Canto 1, Chapter 3, forms of the Lord as they appear in this world. That's avatar. Forms of the Lord that appear in this world. Starts with the Vishnu forms, the Purusha avatars, and then it describes the avatars of Vishnu. And there's a nice long list, 26 of them. Krishna's in that list as an avatar of Vishnu. Bhagavatam, our highest authority, says the same thing that you hear outside of ISKCON. And then, a very important verse, of all these different avatars, there's not just 26, there's many as there are waves in a river, too many to count. Krishna is the source of them. Krishna is the source of Vishnu, who is the source of all the avatars. So wait a minute. Sounds like double talk. But let's do this. Before we came into this room, did we exist? Yes. Most likely we came through the door. Maybe somebody came through a window or something else. But most of us probably came through the door. So we existed before we came through the door, and we came through the door. So Krishna appears as an avatar of Vishnu, and Krishna is the source of even Vishnu, and everything. Bhagavad Gita, several verses. Here's a nice one. You know Bhagavad Gita? A little bit? 10.8 Bhagavad Gita. Look it up later. 10.8 Bhagavad Gita. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pravartate. What Krishna says, I'm the source. I am the source of everything. Then he says it reverse. Everything comes from me. Everything includes everything. Matter and spirit and Vishnu and everything. So Krishna is the source of everything, including Vishnu, and he appears as an avatar Vishnu. No problem. Because he existed before he came as an avatar Vishnu. He exists in the spiritual world. Vishnu is in the material world. The forms of Vishnu are forms of the Supreme that function. Their function is in relation to creation and the maintenance of the creation. Let's say it again. Each of the Vishnu forms, they're expansions of Krishna, and their function specifically is in relation to creation. Narayana is in Vaikuntha. Vishnu is an expansion that deals with creation. Narayana doesn't deal with creation. Vishnu deals with creation and maintenance and the dissolution. And Krishna appears as an avatar Vishnu in this world. But Krishna exists before he's an avatar in this world. Now, that Vishnu is an expansion of Krishna is not a chronological event. Once upon a time, Krishna looked at his watch and said, you know what, I think we should have a Vishnu or two. Boop, there's Vishnu. It's not a chronological, it's an ontological, meaning Krishna is the source, the ontology is the science of being. Krishna is the source of everything. There's other places in Bhagavad Gita that does the same thing. Matak parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya, a verse where Krishna says, there's no truth superior to me. Now he's not making it up. He means what he says. So Vishnu is an expansion of Krishna, and Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu. He appears. He can come through the window. Or it doesn't need Vishnu to appear through. He can appear however he wants to appear. But when he comes as an avatar, that's how he comes. Commonly. So now, you don't need to get into a dispute with anybody on this topic, but it's good for you to know, why does ISKCON say what it says? Because the Bhagavatam says, that's why we say what it says. We say, and we accept Bhagavatam as the topmost authority. In fact, the other Puranas accept the Bhagavatam in that way. I'll say it again. The Sattvic Puranas accept the Bhagavatam as the topmost, the superlative amongst them. And the Bhagavatam makes that very clear declaration. And says it again in many different ways, but that's what's being said. Here's a nice example. A nice example is Krishna, it's towards the end of Canto 10, Bhagavatam. Krishna is with Arjuna in Dwarka. And there's a Brahmana that has a son that didn't die, he just disappeared. One son after the next son, after the next son, after the next son. And he went to Ugrasena and said, what kind of king are you? My sons are just disappearing. It's not like they were born dead. They just disappeared. Fie on you. So Krishna was there, and Arjuna was there hearing that this Brahman said. So he said, my dear Brahman, I give you my solemn word. I am such a powerful warrior. I'll you have another son, and I'll make sure, you let me know when your son is gonna be born. So he did, the son was gonna be born, or June came, he did the thing with arrows, it was impenetrable, and the son disappeared. I'll find him. He searched and searched, couldn't find him. So I'm gonna give up my life, because my vow was I'll give up my life. Krishna said, no need, I know where he is. And then Krishna summoned his chariot. You ready? And they went on a chariot ride. And they went through the whole universe, through the coverings of the universe, into the Brahmajyoti, excuse me, not the Brahmajyoti, into the river Viraja, which is so bright they had to have sunglasses. Like bright, 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 bright. And they went to the abode of Mahavishnu. And Mahavishnu said, yes, it was me that took those sons, because I'm so busy over here. I knew I wouldn't get a chance to see you, but if I took the sons of the Brahmana, you would come. Here's the sons. Then there's other things and other things. You know, the Vedic cosmology. We showed a little video yesterday of Temple of Vedic Planetarium. So Mahavishnu is in a region that's beyond the coverings of the universe, but not yet in the Vaikuntha region where Narayan and Krishna are in Goloka Vrindavan. He's in another region. And Krishna appears as an avatar of him. So you look at the big picture, and it's okay. It's okay people want to say Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu, because he is. And they don't want to go beyond that, and that's okay. It's just not a complete picture. It's not the big picture. So we say what we say because the Bhagavatam makes this very clear, what the big picture is. We respect people that worship Vishnu, or worship Narayan, worship some form other than Krishna. It's just fine. And then when you read Srimad Bhagavatam, the picture becomes clear. So for your heart's sake, read Bhagavatam carefully, not blindly, not just yes, 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 but ask questions and be a little concerned about, am I understanding this correctly? What about this? What about that? Have questions. And the picture becomes clear. Is that all right? Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the form of Krishna?
The form of Krishna.
Yeah, so during the lecture you compared it to, describing Krishna, you compared it to the sky, which is like the composition may kind of change, the wind moves the clouds, but the sky remains.
That's his unmanifest, his unmanifest form. That's not the spiritual form, but the unmanifest form. Now, what am I saying here? She asked a question. There's two very important verses in the Bhagavatam that many things rest upon. I'm going to say the second one. And it answers your question. I hope it'll answer your question. Learned transcendentalists, Vedantists, have concluded the absolute truth is non-dual. Non-dual, because there's duality, and the absolute truth is not part of duality. The duality is resting upon the non-dual, not the other way around. The absolute truth is non-dual. There's no karma, there's no motive nature, there's no duality going on in the absolute realm. And then the second half says that absolute truth is known to have three features. Brahman, that's this big sky. Paramatma, that's the localized feature. And Bhagavan is the personal feature. They're all absolute. Absolute, absolute, absolute. They're non-dual, but they're different features of that same non-dual. So in that example, it's text 6 from chapter 9. You can go look at it later. Krishna makes a comparison. It's a metaphor. He's not saying I'm the sky. he's saying, like mighty wind is blowing clouds in the sky, but the sky is unchanged. So similarly, all beings rest in me, but I'm not changed when those things change. Like the mighty wind blowing the clouds in the sky. You go back to verse number 4, and it's by my unmanifested form. That's the Brahmajyoti, the unmanifested feature. There's not variegatedness in the Brahmajyoti, but the Brahmajyoti is an aspect of, a non-dual aspect of Krishna. Here's an example, may help. Sun shine, sun glow, sun God. The shine of the sun is coming from the sun globe. But Surya Dev is effulgent. And he's residing in the sun, he's the presiding deity of the sun globe, and he's very effulgent. But so we don't see him because we don't have the capacity to see him. Is it fiction? Not fiction. There is such a, Krishna said, chapter 4 Bhagavad Gita, he instructed this sun god. Sun god told his son, Devaswan. Devaswan told his son, Ikvaku. Not fiction. There's a sun god, there's a sun globe, there's a sunshine. So there's the personal feature, there's the localized feature, and there's the impersonal feature. Same absolute thing. That's an example. The absolute truth has three features. So when that is speaking, chapter 9, verse number 4, this my unmanifested feature, that's the feature, the jyoti. But beside the jyoti, Krishna has his own personality. And he has his own abode, and he's not moved when this material energy moves around and does its thing. It's happening by his supervision, but he's not moved by it. Like the sky isn't moved when the wind blows, and the clouds move with the wind. He's pulling his chin. I'm just trying to see if he wants to ask a second follow-up question.
I do, yeah. How do you what do you think of when you say Krishna? Is there a visual form you're thinking about? Is it just this all-encompassing, something that just encompasses everything?
Nice, very thoughtful question. What this is personal, what I try to do is not think of a form, I try to hear the sound. Because the teaching says, that takes some time to realize, but the teaching says that sound also has form. We don't perceive it, we don't feel it, but that sound also has form. I just spent 2 hours today spending time on preparing a presentation that I want to do for college students coming up. The power of sound. And even material sound has form. It's very powerful. So I'll just share with you a little bit and you get to your question after that. There's a thing called semantics, where sound vibrating a medium like a crystal or a table or something, they put a powder on it, and then patterns form on the table or the vibrating medium. And it's mandala, it's a geometric pattern. The little video, it's a 3-minute video, and this guy guy sprinkles powder on the table and then takes an instruments out and starts moving the instruments on the table. You can hear it vibrating. It's a resonating table, not just like a wooden table. It resonates, and it forms like, this beautiful pattern. He puts the tool away, gets another tool, the powder starts to bump around and forms another pattern. It's just sound moves matter in form. Sound there's more and more and more and more and more and more and more to that. And there's a gentleman from Switzerland that made a machine he called a tonoscope, and by different sounds, when he directed through the machine the sound om, it formed the very same geometric pattern that yogis knew ages and ages and ages ago. I see you, yeah, I'll get to you. That's the form that the yogis who chant om understand to be a two-dimensional depiction of the universe. A geometric pattern that can be produced today by directing the sound om through a machine that hits the vibrating surface with powder and other stuff on it, and it forms that same pattern. So, even material sound has form, although we don't see it. So back to your question. When I'm chanting Krishna's name, what do I try to visualize the form? And my answer is I try to hear the sound. Because that sound, when heard with attention, resonates directly with the soul. And when the soul resonates with that sound, then the realization of Krishna is within the compass, within the capacity of the soul to realize. So I can say I'm not there yet. But that's what I do. I try to very attentively hear the sound. I'm going to give another example, then we'll come to this gentleman in the back. Once upon a time I was a kid. And when I was a kid I had 3 sisters. And 2 of my sisters liked playing piano. So my parents bought a piano. It was one of those old pianos. And so every other year a piano tuner would come. That I was curious, what's he going to do? So he brought in a thing, looked like a guitar case, but it wasn't a guitar. It was some rubber mallets that had tuning forks. So he would, for example, I watched him. He took the C tuning fork and held it over the cord that went from the piano key to the back, and just hit the tuning fork with the rubber mallet, and the tuning fork vibrated, the C tone, whatever that is, and he held it, didn't touch the cord, piano cord, he held it near it. And that vibration made the cord vibrate, and then if it was properly tuned, it would, have harmonic convergence in different places. If it was out of tune, he would know whether to tighten it or loosen it or whatever. Then he put that tuning fork away, get the next one, get the other one, get the rubber mallet, and the tuning fork. And it didn't vibrate any of the other chords, just that one. He didn't touch it, just had it close. Similarly, spiritual sound activates, vibrates at the same frequency, you can say, as the soul. It awakens the original consciousness of the soul. All you have to do is hear the sound attentively. Partly we have a problem because we're inattentive, we're distracted and stuff. But when you my effort is not to visualize something, but to hear attentively, with faith that this sound is actually Krishna. And that the whole of the spiritual world will become awakened to my consciousness, my awareness, by that sound, through the medium of that sound. Yes?
I just wanted to mention, going back to cymatics, a really good example, if people don't know what cymatics is or can't visualize it, is the back of a tortoise. That Swiss doctor you were talking about, I don't know his name. I know you're talking about though. He used that magnetic powder,
Yes.
and he applies a certain frequency to the powder, and it takes the shape of almost a vent, but it comes out looking like the back of like a turtle shell. So that's kind of a good example to visualize cymatics coming out in a natural pattern in nature. Just a thought that I wanted to add.
You have something?
Yes.
You
So
smile.
I have a question. Like most of us have come to this experience in our day-to-day lives that desires, the nature of desire, greed, lust, and all these feelings are endless. Even though, like we come to this experience of fire, if we touch fire, we know that it hurts us, and we never go near fire. Likewise, we have come to the conclusion of certain desires that gives us no meaning and they are hurtful. Similarly, lust, which is endless. Everything, all of these feelings are endless. And though we know them, our mind always puts in a position where we come to this illusion, where we always go for, get entangled in this Maya. So how do we completely surrender ourselves? Like we know that there is no meaning to life, like all of these things. I know personally that that many of the things that we do in our lives doesn't add up to anything that is essential. If in case if I die in a moment, I don't know if I'm gonna have something tangible with me,
I
you know.
got the question.
So how do I completely surrender?
Let me make a comment. You're an intelligent man. Because many people don't understand what you just said.
Hmm.
So I'm complimenting you.
Thank you. I don't know that.
I do. You know, so where you have gone, it's further. You've gone further down the path of spiritual life and keep going. So the answer, the response to your question is, Abhyasa yoga yukena cetasa nanyagamino. Abhyasa means practice. No, you said some number of times, 5 times, endless. And that's not true. It is an end, but the end comes when something else awakens, or darkness is replaced by light. Is there an end to darkness? Yes. But the end to darkness, light. How do you stay in the light? Practice. Well, there's a tendency to do it again because we're stupid. Yes. That's darkness. The darkness of ignorance is removed by the light of knowledge. And the light of knowledge is sustained by bhakti. It's an important understanding for you to get your arms around. From bhakti, causelessly, knowledge and detachment come. So you just need to connect with bhakti because it's not endless. Knowledge and detachment will arise from bhakti. So how do you get bhakti? So practice. You receive from those that are carrying bhakti, and you have it already because you wouldn't be here if you didn't have that already. You have it. So now be clear what bhakti is, and you exercise your bhakti muscle. Like physical therapy. You know what physical therapy is? Something you get smashed. Oh, okay. You do 10 of those and 15 of those and 20 of those 3 times a day, okay? Okay, very good. Now here's another exercise. You can continue doing those. Here's some more. And slowly, the capacity that was damaged by some, collision or something, the muscles become restored. So, similarly, bhakti is natural for us. All souls, according to Lord Chaitanya, not only have bhakti, but they have prema bhakti. It's already there. It says, not, vestigial. It's not operating. Because we have attraction for other stuff. And you mentioned some of them. So that's the covering, but beneath the covering is who you really are. And who you really are is carrying prema bhakti. So you just, abhyasa. You practice and practice with faith, in good association, and keep practicing. How long will it take? However long it takes, that's how long it takes. It can go more quickly, it can go more slowly, or somewhere in between. But you with faith, you continue to practice in good association. And you will experience, because it's when you act in knowledge, you get realization. This is an important thing. When you act in knowledge, you get realization. And that nourishes faith. And then with more faith, you go back and you do the practice with more faith. So practice with faith and good association, and you'll get there. It won't be endless anymore. There's lights like this, they have an off and on switch called the rocker arm switch. It's off or on, it's 1 or a 0. But bhakti doesn't work 1 or 0. It's a dimmer switch. So just keep moving, and sometimes it'll slip back. And just keep moving. Just keep moving in good association, with careful practice, with faith. Like this question, or what do you think of when you're chanting? Just hear the sound, because the sound will carry you there.
Prabhu, I also seen like reading books doesn't offer you any realization.
It gives you direction in life, and if you chant nicely, you'll get realization, not just direction. I'm sharing personally. My life has changed. The world around is still the world around, but my experience of the world around has changed because of reading. It's not just reading, but it's assimilating the messages, and my experience of life is different. I can honestly say, the world around me is still the world around me. It's a place of duality, and it's what is what it is. There's honor and dishonor, and pleasure and pain, and heat and cold, and night and day, and seasons, and there's changes, and there's duality. But my experience of that duality is different. It's a combination of these two things. Not just reading books, but hearing and discussing, as we're doing right now, as Harikatha, according to, in this disciplic line over here, there's Prabhupada, and next to him, wearing saffron, is Bhaktisiddhanta. According to Bhaktisiddhanta, the Nama Rupa, the chanting of the name, is to be accompanied by Harikatha. You know the meaning. Katha, topics about Hari, about Krishna. Krishna Katha. Side by side. Just like we don't worship Krishna alone, we worship Radha Krishna, or Lakshmi Narayan, or Sita Ram, or Lakshmi Nrsimha. We don't worship the Lord alone, we worship him with his potency. So the potency is the Harikatha, or Krishna Katha. That's the Swarup Shakti, and then there's the Shaktiman. So you need the chanting of the holy name, and you need hearing and discussing, reading, but then also discussing topics about Krishna in the association of sadhus. That's why you come here, kirtan and discussing topics about Krishna. With faith, get on board, and not that you're not, but with faith, stay on board, and you'll get to the destination.
Sometimes I feel I don't have faith, and I don't know how to develop that. So
By association, by associating with those that have faith, and by acting in knowledge. I like the physical therapy example because I had the experience. Or there's so many things. Ayurveda. I had a tear in my cartilage of my knee, called the meniscus tear. and it was like, double its size, and I couldn't move. So I went to, anyway, at a certain stage, the surgeon said, you don't need surgery, you need physical therapy. Okay, so I went to physical therapist, And from experience, something happened. So I started developing some faith in the process of physical therapy. And then listen to this. I learned something from the physical therapist. The consciousness behind the exercises is as important as the exercise. I'll explain. They say, okay, you need to do these things. Now tell me, what is it you want? What on the other side of this, what is it you want? No, I'm just, this is that the lady was saying. So you ask yourself the same question. The intention, sankalpa is the Sanskrit word. What's your intention? You know the word? Sankalpa. Your intention behind what you're doing. So I said, I want to be able to walk up and down the stairs like I'm not an old man. She said, good. What else? And then, she asked it a few times so I could understand it's important. So then I told her the real thing. The real thing is, I'm planning to go to Vrindavan in October. She said, oh, my friend is going to India. Where's this place? Maybe she can go visit there too. Like the talkative lady. And I said, it's a place where Krishna appeared, and I'm going to be walking around the hill called Govardhan Hill, and I want to be able to walk around the whole thing. I said, good. So then I'm doing my exercises, and sometimes I was just doing the exercises, and sometimes I was thinking, I want to be able to walk around Govardhan Hill. And I felt the effect was so much greater when I was doing the thing mindfully rather than mindlessly or mechanically. Mindfulness in bhakti is very important. And what are you mindful of? What's your mission? What's important to you? Be mindful as you're doing your practice. You don't have to be, hit a 10. Just have to be mindful of where you want to go and why you want to go there. What's important to you. You can refine it, but it makes the practice more effective. So when you're chanting or doing your reading or whatever you're doing, what's the purpose behind it? It'll be more effective. You'll get there, you get to the destination more quickly. Guaranteed. Because that's bhakti. There's the external and there's the internal. Perform prescribed duty and always think of me, Krishna says. Mama anusmara yudhyacha. Always think, anusmara, always think of Krishna and perform your duties. Not just do your duties, or not just think of Krishna, you put the package together. You think there's hope for you? Me too. Because you're intelligent. Most people don't see the futility of chasing the carrot. They're just busy. The bhakti means like, wait a minute, there's got to be another purpose to life than the carrot. What is it? Now, I don't need the answer right now. You need to ask the question and get the answer. But reading Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam and things, it'll help you. The lights will go on. That's it. I resonate with that. Let me go for it. And as I'm doing my, whatever it is, my duties of life, cultivate inwardly. That's bhakti. Good luck. Stay with it. even it's sometimes up and down. Stay with it. Unsteady can become steady by practice. You have another online something? I'm looking. No. Okay, I think we're done. You're very patient. Like this. Huh?
So,
What is your head in the doors?
please watch your head upon arising, anyone sitting near the altar.